Ladies and gentlemen, Violet Games here. Today I'm going to be talking about Paladins. I'm going to give you my thoughts and impressions and other shit. So, without further ado, I'm just going to keep the format of this video scats very simple. I'm going to be talking about what I dislike about the game, then I'm going to tell you what I like about the game, then I'm going to follow up with a verdict of some kind. So let's move right into dislikes. Just a few bulleted list I have here, right there, physically in my hand. First dislike is that this game is extremely unoriginal. There is not an original bone in this game's body. Everything from the character classes to the way they operate to the game modes themselves, completely unoriginal and completely taken from other games. Maybe there's a few nuances in between there, but things are so analogous that you're going to draw direct comparisons to games like Overwatch, from games like Battleborn, and from Hi-Rez's previous game, Smite. Everything has been done before in this game. There is no new thing under the sun in this game as far as its title, really. And even Paladins doesn't sound like an original title, to be completely honest with you. So that's going to be a turnoff for a lot of people when they go in this game and say, oh, it's just a copy of everything else, and it's definitely a criticism that needed to be addressed. Second piece of criticism that I can throw out this game is that the characters, personality-wise, in this roster aren't interesting. Their voice lines are so flat that you think that they did that on purpose to add a sort of parody to the game, that they're addressing that criticism of, we're not original here. We know our game's unoriginal, so here are these carbon copy characters, and let's make their voice lines just so flat to the point where it's actually comedic within itself. And no character is going to stand out or rub you the right way in the sense that you can even remember their name. I find myself naming half of the characters in the game after characters from other pieces of media, including Overwatch. Like, for example, there's a character who's Asian and has a bow and arrow. He's basically Hanzo. And every time I play with someone in this game, they call him Hanzo. They don't even call him by his actual name. I can't even give you the character's actual name. That's how disconnected I am from the roster. I can't even remember the character who I'm playing as in this video at this current moment. It's kind of hilarious how uninspiring these characters are compared to characters like Tracer or Shane and Aurochs from other games similar to this one, those games being Overwatch and Battleborn. Third piece of criticism, you can't switch characters or loadouts during the match. So in the game, you'll have a series of loadouts that you can customize, and you'll have characters that can run said loadouts. But if your team picks a bad composition from the get-go, that's pretty much GG if the enemy team decides to coordinate in a certain way. So that could be a bit of a problem when you can't counter their composition in accordance with your own. And if your team picks the wrong composition to start, you're kind of done. You know, that was kind of a problem with Battleborn a while back, and I don't know why they went with that here. Granted, yet I haven't seen it be a big problem, but it's definitely a concern that needs to be addressed. Fourth, the game doesn't explain itself very well. When you start up Paladins, it doesn't really go into detail anything that's really important in the game. The most salient part for me, or the thing that they didn't tell me the most, was that in this game, the way you heal is when you exit combat, you'll passively heal yourself. I didn't know this, and when I was playing a flanker for the first time, I died a lot, and I was like, wow, you can't take any damage in this game. You really need to rely on supports. But after running away from a bad engagement, I realized I just got my health back, and no one's around me, and I kind of got confused. And I figured out that, oh, when you leave combat, you actually heal. The game never explained that to me. That's kind of important because it's essential to being a flanker or anyone else in the game to have a passive heal. Now, number 5 is kind of a weird one. The game has a very strange sound design, and it's overall not that good. The gun sounds aren't very compelling. They don't sound like real weapons, or there's not a lot of oomph or impact to anything. On top of that, the soundtrack itself for the game is kind of like Overwatch, but worse. It kind of has this emphasis on brass pieces, you know, like things like that, and it just feels weird. It doesn't feel appropriate. It doesn't feel unique at all. Again, the game just lacks any uniqueness to it at all, so it's kind of a thing. And then finally, The poor in-game chat commands are kind of really bad on console. They're hard to access. They're in this very complex wheel that takes too much time to draw up, and it just feels bad. And in fact, you won't see me use it. That's how bad it is. Like, I just refuse to use something like that. And there are a lot of intricate commands that you can use with this menu, but it's clear to me that this was a PC design mechanic. It doesn't work or translate well on console, as opposed to Overwatch's command wheel, which you can say basic things like group up, I need healing, things of that nature. Doesn't really work that well in this game. So those are really the big problems I have with the game, so I'm going to move on next to what I like about it. So what do I like about Paladins? Well, first off, let's talk about the free-to-play business model, shall we? The game, being that it's kind of a copy of a bunch of other games and kind of a mashup of all these other games from the same genre, it's not going to be very appealing to unleash another one when one is just dominating the industry right now, that being Overwatch. So having this game being free to play makes it very accessible to everyone across the spectrum, from people who have a lot of money to spend to people who don't have that much money to spend. The amount of consumer choice in this game really is nice. The only way to really purchase Paladins is to buy all of the characters, and the way you acquire these characters is very, very pro-consumer, because you can play each of the characters within a practice range setting. You can kind of get a feel for the characters beforehand before you purchase them. I actually did this with the character I'm playing with right now. I didn't really know I was going to like her in the first place, but I went through and tried a bunch of the characters, and I was like, this is the one I want to play, and I purchased her for like $5. And it just felt very convenient. I wasn't hassled with a $60 charge, and I got to experiment with the game without paying full price, that being all the heroes. So I like that ability of consumer choice, or that option. That doesn't happen in a lot of games, and it really does work well with this game. Granted, Hi-Rez has been doing a free-to-play model on Smite, so I'm not surprised they nailed this one on the head. 2, the casual feel and player base of this game. At no point did I feel like I needed to try super hard in this game when playing it. Now, granted, the game's new, so yeah, you're going to have some new players around just flubbing with the game mechanics and such. But the game lends itself to a much more casual feel, given that it doesn't feel meta-locked, meaning that you don't need a certain composition to succeed, while having certain composition might help, like having maybe a support or two here and there is not going to hurt, having a tank instead of all DPS, you know, things like that. But overall, I never played a match where I felt like, oh, we need to have this, this, and this. There was a lot of nuance in there, and I really appreciated that. Additionally, again, I don't feel like I have to try super, super hard with the game, and there's nothing wrong with the game being less serious over the other, and having less player skill involved. Like, think of Mario Kart. Mario Kart's a racing game, right? It's not super serious. Mario Kart is a casual game that you get on, you play with your friends, and goof around. Paladins is kind of that. And what's wrong with having a Mario Kart in the MOBA genre first-person shooter? I don't see a problem with it at all. I think it's very cool. If the game was basically the same thing as Overwatch, but, you know, less charisma, I don't think anyone would like it, so I like the casual feel to this game. Third thing I like, the 60 frames per second. And yes, I have to reference this because the reason I didn't purchase Battleborn last year was because it suffered from 30 frames per second and heavy particle effects to the point where you might not know what's going on all the time. That's how bad it got. This game doesn't suffer from that. It's not visually demanding. It's less visually demanding than Overwatch is, actually. So if you were overstimulated by Overwatch, this game might actually be right up your alley. The 60 frames per second make sure that your reactions feel very consistent and concise, and on console, being that we barely get games that run over 30 these days, it's really nice to have that, especially in a multiplayer competitive setting. Next up, we have an FOV slider. Almost in no console games do we get the luxury of having an FOV slider, but yes, it feels good in this game. You can see more around you is basically the premise of an FOV slider. Maybe some of my console viewers don't know what that is, but it stands for field of view. So you get a slider that you can increase your field of view. Overall, you're going to have a better peripheral vision is what the result of this is. And I crank that baby up. It's so nice. It's so nice to have the option and the choice. So yes, I love the FOV slider in this game. I don't know why it's not just capped at 120, to be honest with you. It's just nice to have a console game with an FOV slider. It's just so novel. I love the novelty. 5. The game is more accommodating to more varied play styles than, say, Overwatch. The biggest example I can give is snipers in Overwatch are absurdly difficult to use and are often discouraged. Overwatch is very meta-locked, meaning you can't have a lot of nuance between the meta picks. You know, you got soldier, 2 tanks, maybe 2 healers, and that's meta. You have to pick that, and if you don't pick that, you're at a significant disadvantage unless you have a significant skill gap between certain players. In this game, it feels like you can run a variety of compositions because of the giant character roster. It always feels fresh and new when you go into a game, and you're not like, oh, the OP character's here. You never once get that, and you're also not constantly being blocked by barriers. You feel like you have the freedom to play whoever you want, really, and I really like that. Again, if you're a sniper, this game's going to be more accommodating for you, and it's a lot more casual. You don't have to be kept free to enjoy the snipers in these games. The sniper class is very viable. The ultimate is very viable. It's not like you have a slow grapple that's hardly useful, aside from trick shooting and MLG play. Again, just more accommodation for varied playstyles. Flankers have more flank routes and ambush points and vertical points. And tanks, they just take frontline. You know how tanks work. So yeah, I feel like the map design definitely lends itself to be more accommodating to all playstyles as well. So yeah, it's a point worth referencing, to be honest. Now, number 6, we have card system loadouts. Absolutely adore this feature. It's more of a Smite-esque thing where you have or is it a Smite-esque thing? Actually, I'm going to compare it to Battleborn since I directly know that that's what it has in it. So in Battleborn, you had a loadout system where you could kind of put a little bit of an emphasis on certain things about your character that you like. And when you're able to kind of make a card loadout system that it pushes more towards your playstyle and what you like about that character, whether it be health, movement, speed, a certain ability, putting emphasis on things that you like about a character makes that character feel more unique and more close to you. Again, it just gives you more choice, and it kind of adds a bit of nuance between one person's character and another. So like, for example, Tracer in Overwatch fighting another Tracer, they're the same. They have the exact same setup, but in Paladins, there could be a slightly different setup leading to different results in combat and different feels to the character. So I definitely like the card loadout system. It's very simplistic, it's easy to understand, and it just adds nuance to each and every character, making the big roster of characters seem even more complex. It adds complexity to the game, which is always a good thing. Now 7, and this is definitely the most salient point, it kind of covers some of the things I went over previously, it's just the massive variety. The game features a massive roster of characters, and those loadouts add double or triple the variety to those characters, and it just makes the experience so fresh every time you play, and it gives you a sense of experimentation. You know, I want to experiment with different cards, see if I can get better results with a character, see if I put emphasis on self-sustain or tanking or anything about my character. I really, really enjoy the variety. It's definitely the best part about this game, and it's one of the reasons I want to continue playing it. So, final verdict. How do I feel about Paladins? I think Paladins is actually a pretty good game. I don't think it's going to blow games like Overwatch out of the water. You're not going to see this game overshadow anything in esports or anything like that. But I love that it's the Mario Kart, essentially, of first-person MOBA shooters. I think there's nothing wrong with having a casual experience for this game, and I definitely would like to continue playing it. I might even start doing guides for this game if it takes off successfully on my channel, or if not, maybe even do something on Twitch. I really enjoy this game, and I will continue to play it, especially because I like my main right now. She's really fun to play. She's kind of like Genji, but again, the setting of this game just feels so much more accommodating than Overwatch. You don't necessarily need to be an MLG tryhard to have fun here. So, with that being said, guys, this is Violent Games. I'm going to be pissing off. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you try Paladins. There's no reason for you not to. The game's free. You can jump in, see what it's about, like experiment with the menus and figure things out for yourself. And it's definitely a satisfying experience once you get into it and learn some of the weird mechanics that the game doesn't really explain that well. I think it's worth your attention and it's worth your consideration if you're an Overwatch player, especially if you're just tired of having to try all the goddamn time and having to carry your damn team and feeling all this stress, and you just want to enjoy a game instead of making it a chore to play and having to put all of your attention into it after a hard day's work. This is the game for you. I highly encourage you trying it, especially if you love the first-person MOBA shooter genre, if you can call it that. This is Violent Games, Piss and Water.